Milan Lucic's career has been an absolutely interesting one. It's a one marked by triumph. It's a one marked by hockey traditionalists. It's a one marked by a change in a game that happened during one man's career, and there is a lot to earmark here. Today, we are going to talk about the career that was Milan Lucic. We are going to talk about his time with Boston, his trade over to Los Angeles, his time with Calgary, his time with Edmonton, and what the future holds for Milan Lucic. And we're going to talk about it right now. The journey for Milan Lucic starts out in BC in a little league known as the British Columbia Hockey League. The British Columbia Hockey League is a Tier 2 junior league, and it is one of the top junior leagues in Canada. After having a good start with this league, the WHL took note, and he was actually able to crack the Vancouver Giants roster. He was never drafted to the Vancouver Giants, and he's never been the most skilled player. He's been a big player. He's an absolute force. And during one of his growth spurts where Milan Lucic would eventually end up in today's NHL at 6'3", 231 pounds, the WHL took notice, the Vancouver Giants took notice, and he was an integral part on the way to their Memorial Cup win. But before we get to the Memorial Cup, we have to talk about Milan Lucic's first year in the WHL. He only had 19 points. That's incredible. He had 9 goals, 10 assists. However, there was one key stat he did amass, and that was 149 penalty minutes. And you know who took notice of this first year with the Vancouver Giants? The Boston Bruins, of course. How could they not? They noticed the 6'3", 200-plus pound Milan Lucic, and they ended up drafting him in the second round of the 2006 NHL entry draft. Now, you might be asking yourself some questions. Was the league different back then? Absolutely it was. It was still just transitioning, let's say, from the clutch and grab era into the modern era that we saw today. But we all know there's a little bit of a lag, don't we? So yes, penalties were still being called, but it was still in the head of the league that physicality won championships. And the Bruins weren't wrong, because he helped them bring a 2011 Stanley Cup title to Boston. Now, once Lucic was drafted, he would find his skill and he would find his way in the WHL. As an 18-year-old turning 19 in the WHL, with all the confidence in the world, flying high from his draft pick with Boston, he would go on to win a Memorial Cup. And that would occur with the Vancouver Giants, and the Shift, there's always a shift or a shot, would live in infamy with all Vancouver Giant fans. The Shift ends up seeing a massive hit by Milan Lucic that ends up turning the tide for the series for Vancouver over Medicine Hat. The monstrous hit laid by Lucic would go ahead and set the tone. And in the Memorial Cup, it's just a one-game championship. It is not a 7-game series. So the Vancouver Giants and Milan Lucic would go on to raise the Memorial Cup above his head, champion, conqueror, on his way to the NHL in his first season with the Boston Bruins. Lucic at this point was supposed to be the captain of the Vancouver Giants in his senior season, but those plans fell through when he scored a Gordie Howe hat trick for Boston on October 12th, 2007. He would end up in a fight, a goal, and an assist. It's at this point that his career would never be the same again. He would be a dominant NHL player for the next 5 to 8 years. And in his rookie season, as a 19-year-old with the Bruins, Lucic would end up putting up 89 penalty minutes in 77 games. That is one big, tough, rough rookie. He was the definition of Bruins hockey at the time, and the entire time he stayed with Boston. His first season would also see him rack up 27 points, but it wasn't his first season where he really made the impact. It was the 2008-2009 season where that impact would become very notable. And we all know that Milan Lucic was drafted alongside another famous Bruins alumni, David Krejci. These two would be bonded at the hip. They would be friends for life. They remain friends to this day. In 08-09, Lucic would go on to amass 136 penalty minutes in 72, outdoing his best of 89 the year before as a teenager and a rookie. He would put up 42 points in 72 games, 17 of those being goals and 25 of those being assists, thus adding a nearly 30 to 40% improvement on his previous rookie year. It wasn't until 2010-2011 though that Lucic really broke out of his shell. He finished that season with 62 points in 79 games and a Stanley Cup victory, and he would follow that up in 2011 and 2012 with 81 games and 61 points. This is a player that marks durability, size, heart, and locker room leadership. In each season, he would amass over 120 penalty minutes. It was 121 and 135 to be exact, but we would never see Milan Lucic reach these totals again as he started to adjust his game and he started to play his game in a more scoring, fluid, and offensive manner. With big point totals, he would become smarter at when to fight, how to fight, and how to impact the game at the NHL level post 2012. His point totals for the next 3 years with the Bruins from 2012 over to his eventual trade date in 2015 would remain solid from here on out. However, his penalty minutes would not top 100 again in an NHL season. Lucic had the signs of durability as well too. He missed very few games with Boston, he missed very few games with LA, and very few with Edmonton. It wouldn't be that the miles would start logging on Lucic's body, and Milan Lucic would remain durable throughout his career, even to this day that the video is being made. He played all 82 games with the Calgary Flames last year, 2021 and 2022. Lucic's success and playing days would be marked with a Boston Bruins team that was led by then GM Peter Chiarelli, with Nathan Horton and David Krejci. When Nathan Horton was able to join the Boston Bruins and make the secondary powerhouse line that brought the Bruins their Stanley Cup, that is really when Boston began to sing, and the ever-skilled, smooth-skating, hyper-effective David Krejci would be joined by two absolute animals, you might even say the Milanimal, in Milan Lucic and Nathan Horton. This success was marked by 2 bridge deals signed by Milan Lucic and Peter Chiarelli. Each bridge deal was 3 years in length, each bridge deal slightly better than the last. Coming off of his rookie season in 2010-2011, Milan Lucic would sign a contract valued at $12.25 million total over 3 years. That was an average annual pay hit of $4,083,333 per year until the 2012-2013 season. Lucic's performance in that contract, as noted through his penalty minutes, his contributions, his Stanley Cup win, and his point totals, would then be marked by a raise, another 3-year contract signed by Peter Chiarelli for $18 million with an average annual hit of $6 million per year for the Milanimal, Milan Lucic. 2015 and 2016 was upon us though, and Milan Lucic and Peter Chiarelli had not come to a new deal before Peter Chiarelli's departure from the Boston Bruins. Don Sweeney entered the picture, and Don Sweeney had a different view for where the team had to go at this point in time. Even though in the 2014-2015 year, Milan Lucic was able to play 81 games, racking up 18 goals, 26 assists, 44 points, and 81 penalty minutes with a +13 rating, there was no deal that could be found between Sweeney and Lucic. And as we all know, the Boston Bruins do not mess around when it comes to players coming off contract. They will always go for value over a player walking away in free agency, and Milan Lucic, regardless of his contribution to the Boston Bruins at this point in time, was no different. Without being able to sign a long-term deal, and with Lucic adamant that he wanted to make it to unrestricted free agency, a trade was made with the Los Angeles Kings, who are also, like the Boston Bruins, in a win-now window with a big, physical, heavy team that could use a player like this. On June 26, 2015, we saw Milan Lucic move over to the Los Angeles Kings for Martin Jones, the goaltender, Colin Miller, and a 2015 first-round pick. We know with this as well that Martin Jones was flipped to the San Jose Sharks immediately for another first-round pick. So in essence, the Boston Bruins were able to acquire 2 first-round picks in the 3-way trade between San Jose, LA, and themselves. Now, LA at this point in time did not want to send a goalie to their rivals at San Jose, so it's not an official 3-way trade, but Boston is the intermediary, Don Sweeney is the new GM, and a little bit of underhanded tactics, if you want to look at it that way, ended up flipping Martin Jones over to the San Jose Sharks and acquiring a first-round pick. During the trade, Lucic was quoted as saying, "I think the most exciting thing about moving from Boston, I get to move to a team that already knows how to win. The possibility of playing with two really great players, Kopitar and Gaborik, it's really a great feeling. I think we're top 2 or 3 in the league right now as far as contenders." Kings general manager Dean Lombardi said, "We felt that we didn't have the ideal fit for that box. We had a list of players that were an ideal fit, and there weren't many of them. There's not many in the league that can play with top players and bring that element that Lucic has." The 6'3", 228-pound Lucic is a 3-time 20-goal scorer who gives the Kings a bruising forward in the rugged Western Conference. Lucic's been durable as well, playing 566 of a possible 622 regular season games. Giving the fit made sense. It made sense to push the envelope, the Kings GM said. Boston ends up trading Milan Lucic because the man that drafted him, who believed in him, Peter Chiarelli, ends up leaving Boston, and Don Sweeney is looking to put his stamp on the team. We're going to take a quick pause on the video right now to thank one of our favorite members here on this channel, the Brown Tiger. The Brown Tiger is an executive suite member of our channel here at Hot Garbage Sports. We cover the best in hockey, coaches breakdowns, and hockey entertainment. Go ahead, subscribe down low, give us a big thumbs up, and join the Discord just like Brown Tiger did. And if you want to go ahead and get a video made by you, all you have to do is join our executive suite. Options are below with the join button or at our homepage. And we want to give a big shout out to our executive suite members as well as our lower bowl members. But Brown Tiger, this video was requested by you. This one is for you. Thanks for being here, man. Milan Lucic would have a successful season with the Kings, joining Marian Gaborik and Anze Kopitar on quite a big line for LA. He would finish with 55 points, one of his better seasons to date. He would finish with a +26 rating, 79 penalty minutes, 20 goals, and 35 assists in 81 games. The LA Kings would finish second in the Pacific Division with 102 points, only 1 point against their rival, the Anaheim Ducks, for first place. The second place finish would have them facing their rivals, the San Jose Sharks, in the first round of the NHL playoffs, the exact same team that just took Martin Jones away from the LA Kings thanks to the Milan Lucic trade over to Boston and the crafty Don Sweeney. However, the LA Kings would go on to lose 4-1 in the first round of the NHL playoffs last year to the San Jose Sharks, and Jonathan Quick's successor in LA, Martin Jones, now playing for San Jose, would get the last laugh over the LA Kings in the Milan Lucic deal. Lucic would then hit free agency and would sign a massive $42 million 7-year contract, the maximum contract allowed for a player not signing with their original team with the Edmonton Oilers. Milan Lucic's quoted reason for going over to Edmonton: to play with Connor McDavid. But there was another big decision piece for Milan Lucic joining Edmonton, and that was Peter Chiarelli. Peter Chiarelli would join the Edmonton Oilers. He would join Connor McDavid, and one of his first acquisitions, or at least major free agent acquisitions, would to bring the player in that he found from the Vancouver Giants with a minimal 19 points, a former undrafted WHL player, his second-round pick with the Boston Bruins, Stanley Cup winning player Milan Lucic, to protect, work with, and score alongside McDavid. It basically came down to the McDavid factor, Lucic told Sportsnet. From what I saw in one season as an 18-year-old was something special, and I think for Oiler fans, with him, you can start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I truly believe with a special player like that, it's inevitable he's going to do something great, and that's something I wanted to be a part of. Unfortunately, this would end up being special for all the wrong reasons. The first year in Edmonton, Lucic struggled to find footing. Yes, he finished with 50 points. He played all 82 games and he had 50 penalty minutes, the lowest in his career at that point, but he would finish with a -3. The first time since his second year with the Boston Bruins that he would finish in the negatives. This hyper-productive player, defensively and physically, was struggling to play alongside the speedsters like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. He was finally partnered with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and found limited success playing with Hopkins, as in 2017-2018 would mark a 34-point campaign for the $6 million a year Milan Lucic and a -12 rating. 2018-2019 would prove to be even worse, as he would finish with 79 games, 20 points, a -9, and 91 penalty minutes. The only consistent thing Milan Lucic was keeping up at this point was his penalty minutes. It's at this point in time that he would be traded to an Alberta rival, the Calgary Flames, for another player who was of similar age and struggling with the Calgary Flames. James Neal and Milan Lucic would be traded in Alberta, and the problems of the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames would be swapped, both hoping that a change of scenery would prove well for both players. Lucic had a no movement clause, so he had to be asked where he wanted to go. Lucic was then quoted saying, "In order for me to move on from Edmonton, it was important to go to a contending team, a team that was playing meaningful hockey on a night-to-night basis. Throughout my career, that's brought out the best in me and my game. Missing the Stanley Cup playoffs 3 of the last 4 years, I don't want to do that anymore. As I said, I want to be playing meaningful hockey on a night-to-night basis with the excitement and energy that I can bring. I think this will revitalize me and help me take the next step." Calgary also receives a conditional 3rd-round pick in the 2020 draft thanks to this trade. The Edmonton Oilers would go on to also retain 12.5% of Milan Lucic's salary, which equals $750,000 a year, a dead cap hit that they would be paying until this moment, until this year. The Calgary Flames would retain no salary for James Neal and would only have to take on the $6 million AAV from Milan Lucic. Milan Lucic would never rebound, though, into the player that he was in his Boston days in his final season with the Los Angeles Kings. Lucic would find himself on the bottom 6 with Calgary, a checker, a physical player, and a locker room leader. $6 million a year is a lot to play for a bottom 6 player. However, for Calgary, they feel they won this deal as James Neal ends up moving off the roster, and they picked up an energy player and a player that could make a difference physically in the playoffs and on the way to the Cup, which is where they believe they were headed. Lucic would play 68 games, 56 games, and 82 games respectively in the last 3 years between 2019 and 2022. Milan would never amass more than 23 points again in any of these seasons. He would continue to hover around 50 penalty minutes per game until 2021-2022 when he amassed 84 penalty minutes. He would never return back to a positive player and has been plagued by 6 negative plus-minus seasons since the move to Alberta between both Edmonton and Calgary. Both Edmonton beat writers and Calgary beat writers claim at this point in time that they won the deal. Ken Holland believes he won the deal. Brad Treliving believes he won the deal. Only you can be the judge of who ends up winning this deal. It was ugly for both teams, but it made sense at the time, and it still makes sense today. By the pure numbers, today the Calgary Flames only had to pay the $5.25 million to the end of the 2022-2023 season for Milan Lucic. They retain no salary for James Neal, and they take no additional cap penalties. They have a full free-up of cap space in 2023 and 2024. Since 2021-2022, Edmonton has had to pay $1.9 million on the James Neal contract. They also have to pay $750,000 on the Milan Lucic contract until 2023. That is a total of $2.6 million per year. The Edmonton Oilers will be paying for James Neal and Milan Lucic for the next 4 years, whereas the Calgary Flames will be out of this deal by 2023-2024. Milan Lucic is a special player. He's a player that has held the hearts of many hockey players, and he is a player that has held the ire and the irk of many hockey players. He's had amazing moments like the Stanley Cup and his points, and he's had low moments where he's ended up running goalies, being suspended, or running around doing controversial behavior for some fans of the NHL who are not traditionalists and do not like the clutch and grab, physicality, and fighting that still remains in the NHL today, but has been changing slowly since Milan Lucic's entrance into the NHL in the late 2000s. Lucic's career will continue on at least for 1 more year with Calgary. He will have 1 more year to prove that he is a valuable player in the NHL, and by the time his contract is over, he'll be 35. Only time will tell if Milan Lucic will take a league minimum deal, which is where this YouTube host thinks he's going to end up after his 35th birthday and after this contract ends up running out with Calgary. The one thing that is certain, though, is that the time of Milan Lucic making money in the multiple of millions of dollars with long-term contracts is over. Lucic will likely resign to signing one-year deals, or he will likely look to retirement. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for being here, Brown Tiger. Appreciate the video suggestion. Subscribe, join, and link up with us for more videos covering the NHL playoffs, players, and all things hockey.